Rolling along on this Monday. Great to have Dan Villari on to kick us off today. Noted tight end and the ACC running back of the week. Fun times, fun times. College football, man. College football, you never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to get with college football. Well, we do know what we're going to get is Monday, roundabouts 4:30 every week. We talk to our guy, Adam Terry. Welcome in, Adam. And what can you say about Saturday? How the heck did they pull that off? And I guess you know it. You've been involved in offense installs a fair number of times in your career. How do you change that up as much as they did basically in only a week?
Well, if you already had Dan Villari on, I don't even know why I'm coming on the air. I mean, that's a walk-off right there. The man, the myth, the legend after one game.
Yeah,
so
there we go.
It's pretty impressive. No, I think the difficulty with that is, Dan had a background as a quarterback, so there was a skill set that you were able to tap into that I don't necessarily think just a straight running back or anything like that would be able to feel what it is to have a mesh point, when to pull the ball, when not to pull the ball, and then he's a big enough dude that he could take on tacklers from multiple angles. So, it was a textbook thing that he went out there and did, and it was very surgical. And tip of the cap to Jason Beck because when we started the game, we're looking at McPhail and thinking that he's going to go into the game because we knew that Garrett Schrader wasn't completely healthy and that there were some limitations. Then we saw Garrett warm up, and we're like, oh, okay, well, maybe there's something. Then he gets into the game, and we see that touchdown pass to Max Mang, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
this doesn't look good. And then it was a Dan Villari show after that. So I think Jason Beck and Dino did a fantastic job of installing basically the Wildcat for a former quarterback.
Yeah, and doing it in a week. And I'd say, what really makes it even more, stand out, right, is doing it especially, from Dino's perspective. You're making that call back into a corner, knowing that, you got to win some games here down the stretch. And that felt like one, right, Adam, that there was no plan B if that didn't work on Saturday. There's a lot, I imagine, that goes into making a call like that.
Well, you put them out on the table and you say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. The difficulty with that package is there's only a certain amount of guys that are going to get visual reps and then actual reps during the week. Offensive line is just going to continue to block the same play. But Dan Villari, LaQuint Allen, Garrett Schrader, those guys were, they're in different places. They're moving around. They're in different packages. You've got more tight ends coming in. You've got a plethora of different things. And the difficulty is you can only give it to one guy to get those reps opposed to 5 guys that you might want to get reps during the week. So, Jawan Price coming in the game, Ike Daniels coming into the game. Those guys really haven't said or done much throughout the course of the year. So seeing that double running back package come in, and it was, it was a great win. Do I think that would work against Florida State? No, by no stretch of the imagination. But it got a win when they needed a win in order to catapult them forward.
Yeah, and I guess here's the main question. It's all great on Saturday, and that should be celebrated, rightly so. All right, and the Dan Villari game and all that stuff. It'll be a great memory for a lot of people for a long time. And here is the follow-up question, right, for the next 2 weeks. I don't foresee Garrett Schrader getting that much healthier the next 2 weeks. Maybe I'm wrong. It just doesn't really look like the case. Can this work again in one of these next 2 games to make a bowl game, Adam? How much more difficult is this to succeed now that Georgia Tech and Wake Forest obviously will be preparing for it?
Well, you look back and you look at what Tony Sperano did years ago when he was down at Miami, and he had Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown.
Yep.
In their own right, first-round picks, but they did a lot of Wildcat-esque stuff. They were the first ones to kind of bring it back to the NFL because it existed prior to it. And it worked, in certain places where you needed to do things. It's going to be much more difficult when you have film out there to go play Georgia Tech and expect it to go as smoothly as it did. Pittsburgh is the worst team. I don't know if I want to say that, but Pittsburgh was reeling, and they did not play well. With that being said, we only broke away from them in the third quarter. So going into an away game, hostile environment, going down to Georgia Tech, more distractions. The biggest thing is, can they focus in order to get another win under their belt? And that puts them in bowl contention.
I'll say it for you, Adam. Pittsburgh is the worst team in the league. I think Virginia was going to be. Virginia's been kind of intriguing here the last few weeks. Pitt, man, I don't know what the deal is. But, the Orange were backed into a corner. They came out with a win. And, Garrett Schrader's in an interesting situation here, right? Like, he's clearly hurt. He's clearly hurt in a way that allows him to still play, but not realistically throw the football like he wants. But he knows, right, Adam? Like, this is the, it's the end of his college career. Like, I think we all got to tip our cap right a little bit to a guy that's like, hell or high water, he's getting out on the field.
Yeah. And that's what it is. You look at the character of the kid and, the ups and downs and the roller coaster that he's been a part of. Does he project out to the NFL? I think he has a lot of intangibles that guys and scouts are going to want to see that he has. So, the only issue is if they ask him to throw a ball right now, I don't think that's happening.
Right.
So for Garrett, to go out there and gut it out and tough it out, I think, he brings the locker room with that, and he brings everybody along with that, and it becomes a folklore type thing that, we'll revert back to as always as a football fan base does. But, it's a last hurrah. You want to be out on the field the most that you can. And it looks as though it's more of a throwing injury than it is necessarily get hit on the shoulder type injury.
Yeah, because he was lead blocking people with the shoulder during the game. I don't know if it's pain tolerance or whatever, but it clearly is only affecting the way he plays football, throwing the ball. So I guess it leads to the interesting question going forward, right? Like, obviously, Carlos Del Rio Wilson got hurt in the last game. He didn't even dress. Luke McPhail is the preferred walk-on is next up. Like, I don't know what you do, right, Adam, if you're trying to work any of the throwing game in this week. We saw Dan throw it sometimes. LaQuinn Allen throw a pass. Like, I don't know where the next wrinkle is off this if Garrett Schrader, if you're going to do the same thing, right, if Garrett's going to start, but he essentially can't throw the football.
Well, that's the conundrum that you face going into this week is, you're not going to be able to throw the ball. Is this a situation where Luke McPhail can get some more reps, knowing that Garrett already knows what this is and what it's about, and you saw the way that he executed. So we saw Villari kind of pull it back there and try to throw it down the field, but you can tell he's a little bit rusty. And at some point during the game, I just kept saying to myself, hey, we're going to have to throw the football. We're going to have to throw the football. And then you look across and you look at Pittsburgh, and I think that's a shell of who they expected to be. But that offensive line was just rolling people.
Yeah, well, from an offensive line perspective, Adam, a game like that where the game plan is we are going forward, like the whole game, this is it. Well, what is a game plan like that from your O-line perspective like to be a part of?
That is like a dream in heaven, knowing that you don't have to go pass protect and go against a guy that can run faster going forward than you can go backwards, and you just get to tee off on guys. There were some gaping holes there that, the double team, the combo blocks were just, you were displacing a defensive tackle into the lap of the linebacker. And that just was building confidence. You saw Joe Cruz go in the game, a guy that you don't see much of, and he played pretty well. The difficulty with this is, once somebody starts to load the box and you get stopped, then what are you going to do? Right? And who knows? This might be the thing of the future where nobody stops them in the run game, and you reel off 2 more wins, and you go into a bowl game, and you're like, man, we just run the football now. But I think that is a vast divergence from who the offensive coordinator and who the head coach are.
It's clearly, and I think what's so interesting, the good and bad, I compliment Dino for, I'd say in many ways, like, this is the best week he's had. He's had bigger wins, obviously. Clemson, like, all of his big wins in his career are within the framework of what he did as far as, concocting a new game plan and all this. This is maybe the best, game plan coaching week they've had here. And now, Yeah. Are you going to go do it against two teams that know it's coming? Like, Georgia Tech's one of the worst run defenses in the country, but it's going to be fascinating, right, Adam? Like, I don't see any way they don't do this again, and then Georgia Tech's going to have everybody up there. It's just kind of like, can you punch a hole through all 11 guys in your face?
Yeah, and I think they can. It's a porous defensive front. It bodes well to what they were able to execute against Pittsburgh last week. The offensive line has confidence. Villari has confidence. LaQuint Allen ran well. If anything that you're looking for, you're kind of chomping at the bit right now because you got Georgia Tech, who can't stop the run, and then you got Wake Forest, who has no clue who they are right now.
No. Well, Wake has looked bad. I mean, Wake has been very defined in what they are under Dave Clawson for the last, decade, pretty much. And this year, it doesn't really look anything at all like the Wake we've grown to know here for the last few years. So you got two gettable games here down the stretch as Adam Terry is with us on a Monday. And, talking to Dan last segment, talking to the guys last week, you can sense a change here. Like, there was a lot of negativity around the program, inside, outside the locker room, with good reason. You have a 5-game losing streak. It's not happy, fun times. How much does that part of it help, Adam, that you lift the cloud off, I guess, here this week and are able to, go back at it with, clear eyes after a win like that?
A win in college football is a very difficult thing, and to get one when you need it, as people are, as the outside is looking at you and saying, hey, you should do this, hey, you should do that, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and you feel pretty good about yourself knowing that you can control your own fate, and controlling your own fate is being able to run the football, and you got a heck of a running back in LaQuint Allen. Villari did his thing. I just this is not a long-term thing, but I just don't know if they get dialed in. Georgia Tech next week gets dialed in against the run game. You didn't really show a pass. I mean, you had Max Mang's touchdown, but when you can start to load the box and disregard people.
Mm-hmm.
One, you have a very good opportunity to take a shot down the field, but two, that also puts more players into the box that you have to now run against.
Yeah, you have a shot, but you have to hit the shot at some point, or else it becomes impossible if you can't get through that line. And, getting back to Villari here, Adam, you played, and it's one of my favorite games just because it is, you talk about college folklore and all that stuff. You played in the Diamond Ferry game. And saying that out loud, any Syracuse fan knows exactly what I'm talking about, and they don't need another reference. This is now for all time the Dan Villari game. Like, when you are a college player and you end up in a folklore game like that, how cool is that? How long do you take stuff like that with you when you're in games like that?
Well, I think it's forever. When you go back on campus and you mention Diamond Ferry or people that were watching in that generation, I had a bunch of people call me when ESPN was up there doing the Boston College game because that's who he had done it against, and they showed some clips of it. I mean, that was an exceptional performance as a football player, and the same goes with Villari right now. Like it mimics each other very nicely. Long Island goes back to New York City. Everett, Massachusetts goes back to Boston College in front of friends and family, and then just absolutely lights it up.
Yeah, Dan said he had 75 friends and family at the game on Saturday, which, considering the crowd, he had a significant portion of the crowd there on Saturday, so it was a very pro-Villari crowd on that. And, I got to hit you just a little on the defense before we let you go. And I get it. Pitt's offense is a mess right now, Adam. But, man, we talk about the offense and changing it up. The defense kind of got back to what they did this last week, it looked like.
Well, the defense got to sit on the sideline for a little bit.
Yeah, that helped too.
A little bit of rest does everybody pretty well. And then the fact that Christian Veyer couldn't hit the broadside of a barn and a lot of those scenarios also bodes well for that defense. But, I think the defense has been pretty good throughout the year. This one just gives them a little bit more confidence to go into the last two where, it's going to be more difficult. Georgia Tech can throw the ball a little bit better than we've seen over the past couple weeks. And granted, it's a young quarterback and he'll make mistakes, but Kevon Darton, he's my player of the year this year for Syracuse. He's just a guy that's an unsung guy. You see a lot of the coaches from opposing staffs come up to him after the game, and that's like that gold star on your chest.
Yeah, I think he's earned a lot of respect around this league over the last couple of years doing what he's done at his size out there. All right, Adam, good stuff as always. Safe travels down to Atlanta this week. I don't know when Adam and I are talking next week. It's heavily dependent on the basketball doings out in Hawaii, but we'll talk to Adam sometime next week. But thanks a lot, my friend.
All right, sounds good, man. Have a good one.
Adam Terry joins us every Monday. Not Monday next week. We got the basketball game and the post-game show. Maybe Tuesday. Maybe Wednesday. I don't know. We got to figure it out based on our basketball schedule next week. But that is a problem for another day. All right, man. A lot of good football conversation to start our show today. Dan Villari and Adam Terry. You can hop in the conversation when we come back if you'd like. Phone lines open going forward at 315-437-7644. 4 ESPN 44 is our phone number on this hour, brought to you by William Attar. Hurt in a car? Call William Attar. We're back after this on QSportsTalk.com and